The stories of Mahabharata, retold by Sudipta Bhaumik. Welcome, dear friends, to another episode of The Stories of Mahabharata. In the last episode, we heard how the Kaurava warriors foiled all attempts by Arjun to kill Jayadratha. A few more hours, and Arjun might have to step into the fire to keep his promise. As the day progressed, Yudhishthir's anxiety kept on rising. For a while he hadn't heard the loud twang of Arjun's Gandiv. Occasionally he could hear the deep and sonorous sound of Krishna's Panchajanya conch, but nothing from his dear brother Arjun. He called Bhim and said, "I haven't seen Arjun in a while. Haven't heard his Gandiv either. I'm worried. He might have been killed and Krishna is fighting the Kauravas alone." There you hear his conch? It doesn't sound right. This must be his distress call. They need our help. Go, Bhim, go and help them now. Bhim was busy smashing the skulls of the Kaurava warriors. He glanced at Yudhishthira and said, "I'm sure Krishna and Arjun are fine. Nobody can harm them. However, since you asked, I'll go and see what's keeping them." He called Drishtadumna and said, "I leave Yudhishthir under your watch. Don't let Drona come anywhere near him." Drishtadumna assured him, "As long as I am alive, I won't let a fly come near Yudhishthir. You go, and on the way, kill as many Kauravas as you can." Bhim turned his chariot in the direction from where the sound of the Panchajanya was heard. Once again, Drona's chariot came in front of Bhim and cut him off. "You have to defeat me before you can pass," said Drona as he shot a powerful arrow at Bhim. The arrow bounced off Bhim's armor and fell to the ground. "Gurudev, I am not as kind as Arjun, and I won't spare you just because you happen to be our teacher," said Bhim. "If you don't get out of my way, I'll punish you just the way I punish any other enemy." Bhim hurled his huge mace at Drona. The mace hit Drona's chariot and shattered it to pieces, killing the charioteer. Drona tumbled down to the ground, but at the next instant he jumped into a passing chariot and left the battlefield. Bhim continued his journey, and on the way he killed 4 of Duryodhana's brothers, Binda, Anubinda, Subarma, and Sudarshan. Soon, at a distance, he could see Arjun and Krishna fighting the Kauravas. Relieved to see Arjun alive and well, Bhim let out a thunderous roar. Arjun and Krishna yelled out in joy. The sound reached Yudhishthir, and along with other Pandavas, he felt relieved and pounced back upon his enemy with renewed vigor. Before Bhim could go anywhere near Arjun, Karna stopped him. "Where do you think you are going, Bhim?" Bhim tried to ignore him and had tried to swerve his chariot away, but Karna yelled, "Stop running away like a coward and fight me if you can." Bhim could never appreciate taunts and insults, and especially from someone like Karna. "Come on, Karna. Today I will teach you a lesson." Bhim turned his chariot around and faced Karna by hurling a giant mace at him. Karna ducked and the mace flew above his head. Soon, a ferocious battle ensued between the two gallant warriors. Several brothers of Duryodhana came forward to help Karna, but they all succumbed to Bhim's wrath. Karna has been taking this fight quite lightly. He toyed with Bhim and kept him busy. It was quite clear Bhim was no match against Karna in archery skills, which is essential when fighting from a moving chariot. One by one, Karna shattered Bhim's bow, killed his horses, and then his charioteer. Bhim's chariot came to a crashing halt. Bhim jumped off his chariot and attacked Karna with a giant machete and a shield in hand. Karna shred the shield. An angry Bhim hurled his machete at Karna, and the machete cut Karna's bows into pieces. Karna smiled and picked up another bow and began to shower Bhim with arrows. Bhim took shelter behind the fallen elephants and horses, but the incessant flow of arrows from Karna overwhelmed him, and he almost lost his consciousness. As Karna engaged a deadly weapon to finish off Bhim, he remembered his promise to Kunti. He had assured Kunti that except for Arjun, he'd not kill any of her other 4 sons. Karna put down his weapon and came near Bhim, who was sitting on the ground leaning against a dead elephant. He poked Bhim with the end of his bow and said, "Hey, Fatso, get up and go back to your kitchen. That's where you belong, you greedy glutton. Go and cook for your brothers and your wife. That's what you are good for. You are not fit to fight a warrior like me." Bhim looked at Karna with groggy eyes and said, Don't be so proud, Karna. Come down from your chariot and wrestle with me. I will tear you apart the way I tore apart Kichak." In the meantime, Arjun had turned around his chariot and began to shoot arrows at Karna to distract him. Karna turned his chariot around and left the area to join Duryodhan. Satyaki came to Bhim and picked him up on his chariot. Just as he was about to go back to Arjun, Bhurisrava stopped him. Bhurisrava was a great warrior, and soon Satyaki was left with no weapons to fight. Satyaki jumped off his chariot to find a weapon. Bhurisrava came near him and kicked him to the ground. Then he jumped off his chariot with a sword in hand. Satyaki was lying unconscious on the ground. Bhurisrava held Satyaki by his hair and picked him up. Just as he was about to strike with his sword, an arrow struck his right arm and cut it off from his elbow. Bhurisrava cried in pain and looked at the direction from where the arrow came. It was Arjun. Krishna drove the chariot near Bhurisrava and circled him. Bhurisrava looked at Arjun and said, "Why did you do such a heinous thing, Arjun? I wasn't fighting you. I was fighting with Satyaki. You shouldn't have listened to that low-life Krishna and abandoned your Kshatriya code." "Don't lecture me about Kshatriya code. You were about to kill an unarmed man," said Arjun. "And what happened to your Kshatriya code when you killed Abhimanyu like a coward?" Bhurisrava knew his end was near. He ignored Arjun and sat on the floor to meditate. Arjun wasn't sure what to do of him. Just then, Satyaki woke up and saw Bhurisrava sitting in meditation. He couldn't control himself. He pulled out a machete and ran to kill Bhurisrava. Arjun yelled at him, "Stop, Satyaki! Don't kill an unarmed meditating man!" Other warriors tried to stop him. Satyaki didn't listen. With one blow of his machete, he decapitated Bhurisrava. Everybody around were stunned. They couldn't believe that a righteous man like Satyaki could do such a horrible thing. Satyaki looked at them and yelled, "Stop judging me! Where were you and your righteousness when they mercilessly killed that young boy, Abhimanyu? Besides, I had promised that I'd kill anybody who disrespects me and kicks me. I killed Bhurisrava and I did the right thing." Arjun looked at the sun slowly dipping towards the western horizon and said, "Krishna, we don't have much time. Take me to Jayadratha as soon as you can." Krishna veered his chariot and drove towards the direction where the Kaurava warriors assembled to face the final assault. Duryodhana called Karna and said, "The day will end soon. If we manage to protect Jayadratha for a few more hours, Arjun will fail and will have no option but to kill himself. And if Arjun dies, his brothers will follow. The Pandavas will be wiped off the face of the earth, and we will rule without any obstacles. Let's make sure we fight with all our might to make this a reality." Duryodhana, Karna, Vrisashen, Shalya, Aswathama and Kripa surrounded Jayadratha to protect him for these final moments. Arjun began his final onslaught with a barrage of arrows knowing that the Kauravas on his back. Satyaki and Bhim gave him close cover. Duryodhana, Karna, Kripa tried to stop Arjun from all sides, but soon they gave up and took cover to save themselves from Arjun's wrath. Arjun chased Jayadratha. His arrows hit Jayadratha's charioteer and shattered his chariot mast. But Jayadratha escaped Arjun's arrows and remained unharmed. Krishna was concerned. He looked at Arjun and said, "6 of the greatest Kaurava warriors are protecting Jayadratha. To kill him, we need to either defeat them or deceive them. Listen to me carefully. I will use my powers to cover the sun. When the sky becomes dark, the Kauravas will think the sun has set and they are out of danger. Jayadratha will no longer feel the need to hide behind the warriors. He will reveal himself at that very moment. You will kill him." Arjun agreed. Krishna closed his eyes, and within moments, a dark shroud began to engulf the sun. The sky darkened, and the Kauravas screamed in joy. Jayadratha couldn't believe his luck. He stood up on his chariot and looked at the sky to make sure the sun wasn't visible. Krishna called Arjun, "Look, there is Jayadratha, looking at the sky and searching for the sun. This is the moment we have been waiting for. Kill him now!" Through the darkness and dust, Krishna drove his chariot through the rejoicing Kaurava soldiers. When they arrived close to Jayadratha, Krishna stopped the chariot and said, "Arjun, the sun will be down soon. You must act fast. But listen to me carefully before you shoot." When Jayadratha was born, his father, Vriddhakshtra, was told by the gods that his son will be decapitated in the battlefield. Angry Vriddhakshtra cursed, "Whoever drops his son's head to the ground, his head would also burst at the same instant." Jayadratha's father now lives the life of a sage in the forest of Samantapanchak and is in deep meditation. Arjun, you make sure that you use some weapon that carries Jayadratha's head all the way to his father and drop it on his lap. For if you drop the head to the ground, your head will burst and cause your death. I hope you understand what I am saying." Arjun nodded and thought for a moment. He then picked a weapon, aimed it at Jayadratha, uttered a mantra and released it. The weapon flew out like a missile and in an instant separated Jayadratha's head from his body. And then, instead of dropping to the ground, the weapon flew high up in the sky with the head hanging in its tip. Arjun hurled few more arrows to the head and it kept flying towards the Samantapanchak forest. Arjun turned his attention to the battlefield and continued killing the Kaurava soldiers. The arrow with Jayadratha's head kept on flying until it reached the place where the old man Vriddhakshtra was meditating. The arrow stopped and the head dropped straight onto Vriddhakshtra's lap. The startled old man stood up and his son's head dropped from his lap to the ground. Instantly, Vriddhakshtra's head exploded and the man fell dead next to his son's head. In the battlefield, Krishna raised his hand pointing to the sun and the shroud slowly dispersed, and the battlefield lit up again. The Kauravas found Jayadratha's headless body lying on the ground, and knew once again Krishna's divine power has saved the Pandavas from a disaster. Krishna, Arjun, Bhim, Satyaki blew their conch shells to declare their victory. The sound of the conch reached Yudhishthir, and he knew that Arjun has kept his promise. Jayadratha is dead.
The Stories of Mahabharata is written, directed, and told by Shripta Bhawmik. Audio engineering, original music, and sound design by Avi Ziv. Find us online at facebook.com/Mahabharata Podcast. Join the group for updates and news. Subscribe to the podcast using iTunes or any other podcast catcher. On Twitter, we are at Mahabharat Audio.